There is a man in a garage at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. The overhead light flickers. His knuckles are scraped. There is grease under his fingernails that won't come out until Thursday. His family is asleep. The motorcycle in front of him has been partially disassembled for 6 weeks. He is not frustrated. He looks, to anyone watching, completely at peace. This is not a hobbyist. This is not a weekend project. This is something older and more specific than that. To understand who this person is, you have to understand something about the world that built them. Because people who fix their own motorcycles did not arrive at this behavior by accident. They were shaped by a particular relationship with objects, with labor, with the idea that a broken thing is a solvable problem. And that relationship has deep psychological roots. Start with the hands. There is a category of people for whom physical contact with a mechanical problem produces a particular kind of calm. Not relaxation, calm. The distinction matters. Relaxation is passive. This is active. The hands are moving. The mind is focused. Every other concern in the world, financial pressure, relationship strain, professional uncertainty, becomes temporarily irrelevant because the carburetor either works or it does not. The problem is honest. The feedback is immediate. Psychologists call this state flow. But the people in the garage at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday do not call it anything. They just know that this is the only place where time moves correctly. Now, go back further. Think about where this person learned that broken things could be fixed at all. For a significant portion of people who wrench on their own machines, the earliest memory of repair is not theirs. It belongs to someone else, a parent, an uncle, a neighbor, someone who did not explain what they were doing, but simply did it and allowed the child to watch. There was no formal instruction. There was proximity. There was the particular smell of engine oil and the sound of a wrench against metal. The lesson was not technical. The lesson was that the correct response to something broken is not to call someone else. It is to open the hood. This is a transmitted behavior, and it carries with it a transmitted belief system. That belief system says something specific. Problems that can be touched can be solved. This sounds simple. It is not. It is actually a profound psychological orientation that separates people who fix their own motorcycles from people who don't. It is not about mechanical skill. Plenty of skilled people outsource their repairs. It is about a fundamental stance toward difficulty. The person in the garage has internalized. Somewhere below conscious thought, that engagement with a problem is safer than avoidance of it. Here is where most people misread the behavior. When someone sees a person spending their weekend disassembling an engine, they often interpret it as one of two things: a hobby or a financial decision. Either the person enjoys it or the person cannot afford the shop rate. Both interpretations are incomplete because what is actually happening in that garage is a form of psychological regulation that has nothing to do with motorcycles. Consider what the garage provides. It provides a space where competence is visible and measurable. At work, effort is often invisible. Results are delayed, disputed, mediated by other people's decisions. At home, the emotional labor of relationships is real, but unquantifiable. In the garage, you either fixed it or you didn't. The engine starts or it doesn't. The brake bleeds clean or it doesn't. For a person who spends the rest of their life operating in environments where success is ambiguous, this clarity is not a small thing. It is a psychological lifeline. There is something else the garage provides that almost no other space does: acceptable silence. People who fix their own motorcycles are, as a category, more comfortable with extended silence than the general population. Not because they are antisocial, many are deeply social, but because they have a high tolerance for being alone with a problem. They do not need the problem to be witnessed to find it meaningful. The work is its own reward, and the reward does not require an audience. This comfort with unwitnessed effort is itself a personality signature. It often correlates with a particular kind of self-sufficiency that was not chosen, but installed early, often in circumstances where asking for help either was not possible or did not produce results. The child who learned to fix things learned at the same time that waiting for rescue is a losing strategy. That is a harder thing to say, and it is worth sitting with. Not everyone who fixes their own motorcycle grew up in deprivation, but a disproportionate number of them grew up in environments where self-reliance was not optional, where the adults around them were either unavailable, overwhelmed, or simply modeled the behavior of handling things yourself without complaint. The motorcycle is, in some sense, a continuation of that training. The adult in the garage is still the child who learned that the correct response to a problem is to figure it out.
This produces something psychologically interesting. A person who is simultaneously highly capable and quietly resistant to vulnerability. They can solve almost any mechanical problem. They are significantly less comfortable asking for emotional help. These two facts are not unrelated. They come from the same source.
The same early lesson that made them competent with machines also made them wary of depending on others. Now consider what happens when that motorcycle breaks down on the road. For most people, a roadside breakdown is a logistical problem. Call someone. Wait. Be rescued. For the person who fixes their own bikes, it is something else. It is a test. Not in the dramatic sense. They do not experience it as dramatic. They experience it as a puzzle. They pull off the road, they examine the machine, they run through possibilities systematically. There is almost no emotional distress in this process. What other people experience as a crisis, they experience as a problem set. This is not bravado. It is not performance. It is a genuine cognitive and emotional difference in how difficulty is processed, and it is deeply tied to the accumulated experience of having solved problems with their own hands across many years. Every successful repair they have ever completed is stored not just as a memory, but as evidence. Evidence that problems respond to engagement. Evidence that they are capable of navigating complexity. This library of evidence, built repair by repair, produces a particular kind of quiet confidence that is very difficult to replicate through any other means. This is what people who rely entirely on professionals miss. Not the money saved, though money is saved. Not the knowledge gained, though knowledge is gained. What they miss is the accumulated psychological resource of having proven repeatedly that they can handle what breaks. There is a final layer here that rarely gets discussed. People who fix their own motorcycles have an unusual relationship with impermanence. They know, in a way that is both intellectual and visceral, that every machine degrades. Every seal fails eventually. Every bearing wears. Every cable frays. This is not a depressing fact to them. It is simply the nature of things. And because they have made peace with mechanical impermanence, because they have accepted that maintenance is not a problem to be permanently solved, but an ongoing relationship with entropy, they often carry a similar orientation toward other areas of life. They are not particularly surprised when things fall apart. They are not destabilized by it. They already know that the correct response is to diagnose, to source the right part, and to put it back together. That man in the garage at 11 p.m. is not escaping his life. He is practicing it. Every repair he completes is a small rehearsal for the larger task of staying functional in a world that breaks things constantly. The motorcycle is not the point. It never was. The point is what the repair proves every single time. That something broken is not the same as something finished.